All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order Thursday, June 13th, 2024, Cupertino School District Board of Education. Today is National Golf Cart Day. Works for me. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Aaron, please.
Yes, trustee Leon.
Here.
Trustee Madhato.
Here.
Trustee Chow.
Present.
Trustee Liu.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Here. Board agenda approval, a motion, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Jerry. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Satish. Roll call vote, Aaron.
Yes, trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Madhato.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Liu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Moving along to the board study session. Superintendent, yeah.
Thank you. So we are excited to wrap up the year with our last board study session, and we are focusing on student assignment and student enrollment. Some of it will be bringing you back some updated information throughout the year as we implemented the new board policies as a result of the enrollment task force. And then there's just some of the enrollment processes and numbers that we currently have. So I'm really just to provide some updates and information. We haven't done that for a while. We also have Kristen Peruta, who is our manager of student assignment, joining us as well. So I'll kick it over to Erin and Kristen.
All right, thank you so much. The last study session of the year. We're excited to be the closer. So this evening, we're really going to focus on the work of the Student Assignment Office, including registration, open enrollment, as well as Superintendent Yao mentioned, our current student enrollment numbers for the 24-25 school year. The numbers presented in the presentation were pulled on June 1st, and it's been about 2 weeks. And so we are already seeing shifts, which are totally normal at this time. So just keep that in mind with the numbers that they are have changed already. So this year, at actually about the same time last year, we started talking about the idea of a centralized registration student assignment office. And we did some research. We actually went and talked with different student assignment offices in other districts and found that many of the surrounding districts have a centralized office for student registration. And so we began looking at that process and what it would take. We were able to hire 2 additional staff members. And we really found that the benefits for this shift revolved around consistency. So one main point of contact for all of our families, as well as accuracy of student records. It's absolutely imperative when students are registering with us that we're making sure all of those proof of residency documentation are collected correctly, immunization records, as well as simply just data entry into our SIS system. And then again, just based on our research, the majority of districts do have this type of student assignment office set up, including our neighboring high school district, Fremont Union High School District. So since January, our student assignment team has registered more than 2,100 students. Before this centralized registration, student assignment was registering students for the current school year, but school sites were responsible for priority registration. So during the months of January, through April, school sites were responsible for registering new students for that upcoming school year. That has shifted now. So all of the students are registered through the Student Assignment Office. So how does one register with CUSD? So the first step is a parent submits their registration request through our website, cusdk8.org. And one of our student assignment team members contacts the families and they review all the required documentation for registration, including proof of residency within our CUSD boundaries, birth certificates, and immunization records. Then the student assignment team takes a look at our current student enrollment numbers within each school site at the particular grade level their child is registering for. If there's adequate space, they're assigned to that school and grade level within minutes of having a conversation with the families. If there is not adequate space at their attendance area school, it could take up to a business day to determine where that child will now overflow to. So in terms of overflow, All of our schools are overflowed schools. So if a student registers and they cannot attend their attendance area school, the assignment team will first look at the nearest schools that remain within that middle school feeder pattern and then make that assignment. If there are no spaces available in the attendance area school within the middle school feeder pattern, then they will look at the next closest school for assignment. Of course, those schools also have to have adequate space as well. So that process could take up to a business day, depending on the time of year and how many student registrations are occurring within that time period. And then as a follow-up to overflow, if a student is overflowed, I'm sorry.
Do you want us to ask questions?
Sure, if you'd like, yeah.
Okay, did you have a question, Sonia?
Question about
Yes.
the process. So with the overflow, let's say a family comes in, there's space in fourth grade, but not space in second grade, for their two kids. What then is the process? Like, then at some point it's open to them for fourth grade, and then let's say it's two, now there's no, like, yeah, can you just, what happens, what's offered to the family when that happens?
Yes. So sibling priority is one of our priorities we look at. Of course, if there's no space available, then one of the students would be overflowed. We would have a conversation with the family about if there is space for the sibling as well at the overflow site, which could be a possibility or also could not be a possibility. So generally, most families do choose to stay at their attendance area school and then hope that there will be a space available. When a space is available at a child's attendance area school, offers are made immediately to the families to let them know that there now is a space available and we can bring your child back.
So a new family moves to town. There's space for the younger one, but not the older one. The family is offered, you can split your kids, you can keep them together and move them into a place where both kids can fit, or you can, or I guess those are
the two options.
choices. And then once there's a space for both kids at the assigned school, then they move back over.
Well, once a space is available for either of the students, we would make that phone call and let the families know. Oftentimes it just depends on the scenario, but they may say no, they want to keep their children together, or they may say yes, and they want to have one attend the attendance area school and the one not.
And then the next year, when you kind of start all over again, let's say they're at the overflow school, but then how do they get put back into the system?
Yes.
So that they're not stuck at the
Stuck there.
overflow?
Yes. Yeah. So at the end of every school year, so at the end of the close of this school year, when we do our roll-up numbers, we bring back all of the students who are overflowed back into their attendance area schools, and that resets our class configurations for the following school year.
Thank you.
Satish.
Yeah. So how does the alternative school or the open enrollment work in this case?
So open enrollment, we're getting to.
Okay.
Yes.
Get it.
Yes.
But when they register here, it will be not, you have to do early registration or reapplication for the alternative school.
Correct.
I'll wait for that.
We'll review open
Okay.
enrollment in a couple of slides. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions before we move on?
No, wait till open enrollment.
Okay,
Okay. Oh, all right. So we'll give the screen. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So this chart illustrates our currently enrolled students by grade level for the 24-25 school year. And this is focused on our elementary schools. So you can see the different colors represent the different grade level bands. And then at the top is the number of the currently enrolled students for 24-25. This data was pulled on June 1st. This is a similar chart that shows the currently enrolled students by grade level for 24-25, but at our middle school levels. So I did want to take a moment and review some of the recommendations that were brought forward by the enrollment task force this year. So there were 4 different recommendations that staff implemented this year. The first one was Stockholmeyer open enrollment. So we granted them priority into non-impacted attendance area schools. So this year we saw 10 Stockholmeyer students apply for open enrollment, 8 accepted, and 2 either declined or we were unable to hear a response back from them. The second recommendation was open enrollment priority for larger attendance area schools into smaller schools. And just as a reminder, that the task force did define a larger school as enrollment of 486 students or greater. And this was really based on the prior work of the CAC, where they had determined the ideal school size was approximately 3 to 4 classes per grade level. So the results of this shift were 38 students applied. And again, the larger schools this year were Dilworth and Lincoln. 12 accepted offers, 9 either declined or we did not hear back, and 17 are still currently in the queue for processing. The third recommendation was to shift from a living waitlist to an annual waitlist. We're in a transition phase of this process this year, and this really relates to recommendation 4, where there's a shift in open enrollment for families to, instead of selecting 2 schools as an option, just selecting 1. And so earlier this year, Student Assignment contacted all of the families on the living waitlist, and they were asked them to select 1 school that they would like to be on the waitlist for. And this really cleaned up that data of the living waitlist. Many families that our staff contacted had forgotten that they were on the waitlist, have forgotten that they had ever applied for the waitlist. And so, graciously thanked us and said, please remove us from your waitlist. Then we had our open enrollment period, and this year families selected 1 school. So our waitlist numbers now reflect a combination of the living waitlist, but just based on 1 choice, and our new families who have chosen for the open enrollment window. So again, we're kind of in that transition phase. At the end of this coming school year, 24-25, will be the first time where it's an annual wait list. So we'll reset the wait list during that open enrollment period. So this slide just dives a little bit deeper into what I was explaining before about that shift between selecting 2 schools during the open enrollment period down to 1. So on the left-hand side, you can see that the different choices that were made, the first and second choice for all of our 4 alternative schools. The state is looking specifically at kindergarten because, as you can imagine, our greatest numbers of open enrollment applicants are in the kindergarten age band. And then you can also see how many offers were made, how many were accepted, and how many were declined. And then on the right hand side, you see the data for this coming school year, so the 24-25 school year. And I think what I'd like to really draw your attention to is the number of offers that were declined. So you can see for 23-24, for Faria, there was 13 that declined, 19 at McCullough, 20 at Clip, and 61 at Murdoch-Pertall, compared to this year, where there was only 4 declined at Faria, 3 for McCullough, 4 for Clip, and 4 Murdoch-Pertall. And I think that's really because families are choosing really what they're hoping for in terms of the school that they would like their child to attend.
So for the declined offers, was that are these at the beginning of the year that they were declined, or is it like throughout the year as they get off the wait list and then they declined it?
This was during the open enrollment time period. So open enrollment for alternative schools happens in January, and then offers are made, and these were the ones that had been declined. Ava.
I'm just curious, the low numbers of decline, what were the main reasons like declining, or like were they happy with their neighborhood schools, or did they go out to private schools? What were the main reasons that you found?
They don't have to give a reason when they decline on the open enrollment offer letter. They just have to accept or decline, but there's no reason behind why.
Okay.
Satish?
So what is that, a column without, any title? Is it like the total, then the second set? What is that, 240, 31? It's like the current application or what is that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. That is their, because there was only one choice. So that was the number of choices. So 240, there were 240 families or students who applied for FARIA during the open enrollment
Okay,
period
for kindergarten.
for kindergarten, just for
These
kindergarten.
numbers represent kindergarten.
And 240, and then we offer 99, 95 accepted, so four decline. So what does it mean? So you will take four from this 240? The 4 decline,
No,
right?
they're, four said, no, we will not be.
So
Mhm.
you still have people from, so who will fill that 4? That is
Yes.
from this 240?
Yeah, so we always leave a little bit of a buffer in terms of right during that open enrollment period at the end of January, because there's always things that come up. So for example, parents forget to note that they have a sibling already in that school. And so that priority, we need to make sure that priority does get added to the list. Or for example, someone didn't attend a tour that should have attended a tour for an alternate school. So, but they're looked at very closely. And as we get closer and closer to August, we make sure that all of the classes are filled to capacity based on that class ratio for the grade level.
I have additional question. If we have a family and they have 2 students, one of the students is already accepted into an alternative school. And the second child is not accepted, let's say yet, and maybe like a few weeks later, someone else drops out. Do we notify the family as soon as we know when there's a space available?
Yes, the student
Or do you-
assignment. Yes, the student assignment team is constantly on a daily basis looking at where there are availability.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so how do families open enroll? So first they need to register with CUSD. So going back to those slides previous, they register and all the verification is made. For all our alternative schools, they also are required to take a tour of the school. This is because we want to make sure families understand the program that the alternate school offers and what that involves. The schools are responsible for conducting the tours. Some are held virtually, some are held in person. It's usually run by the principal with perhaps a teacher, another staff member available. Then families will apply during the open enrollment period. So for alternative schools, that usually happens in February. We do the alternative open enrollment first because then we are able to see where the openings are in the other alternative schools. This year, based on that task force work, again, instead of opening up all schools, all alternate schools for open enrollment, we did identify the schools and grade levels where there was actually adequate space to be more transparent and for families just to know where there's actual space within our district and our grade levels. And the alternative, the attendance area school, rather, that open enrollment period is in April. So after the open enrollment window closes, student assignment works through and really cleans through the data, make sure that all of the student information that was submitted is correct, goes through the list of our CUSD priorities in terms of student priorities. So we have sibling priority, we have staff priority, and then they determine how to run the wait list, which is done on a digital platform. They verify that all of the tours for the alternative school programs have been met. And then they begin to send out offers. They start with kindergarten first, because again, that's our largest group of families who will need to be assigned to the alternative schools. And then they work through the rest of the grade levels, making those offers out to families. So the charts here indicate our alternative school enrollment for the 24-25. So that's the chart on the left. So you can see the enrollment for Faria, McAuliffe, Muir, Clip, and Murdoch Portal. And then we also have the number of waitlisted students for the 24-25 school year for each of those 4 schools as well.
So I have a question.
I may have the same question before.
I have a question about the third grade this year that we added at Faria. So is that continuing? Will they continue to have however many third graders they have after the addition?
So those third graders obviously will travel up through 4th
Right,
and
right.
5th. We had planned to be removing a class in 4th, but now that class will stay at Faria, so it will travel through.
So the
Okay,
added third
so
grade will cycle out and go forth,
Yeah.
But will
but we're
there-
not adding another.
Okay,
No,
We're
got
not continuing
Okay,
that additional
great.
third grade.
Thank you, Jerry.
It turns out I have a different question. So I'm trying to reconcile the waiting list numbers here with 2 slides back when we had people who selected different schools. So let's just take McAuliffe, since it's a small number. So the wait list here, it shows is 26. This one shows 31 people selected and 31 people were offered. So
This
who-
is kindergarten.
Oh,
These
I'm
are
sorry.
specific.
This is just kindergarten.
Yes,
And this is the entire
wait
sort
list.
of wait list. Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Oh, question, Ava?
I'm just double checking the numbers because it looks really high. So we have a total of 744 students on the wait list for Faria
That's correct.
at all grade levels. It
That is-
looks like,
Correct.
This is probably one of our first true times to see the true number because we are removing that living wait list. And so these are truly, I think that had been one of our questions and as a board discussion last year or the year before is just, well, how many students do we actually have on one particular wait list? I think this is a clearer picture of who's the number on wait list.
I think it'll be interesting to find out if this is like from all areas of our district, or if there's certain patterns in concentration and what to do with the demand with this. I think it's good that we have an enrollment committee. Seeing the actual true numbers, unduplicated numbers.
Jerry?
Yeah, so maybe coming back to McAuliffe, I guess I can't help but notice it has one of the smallest enrollments and smallest wait list and just smallest in lots of things. And if I look at the wait list, it's it's more than an order of magnitude. Is this something that's a blip or is this more systematic? Has this been like this I guess it's the first time we're seeing the numbers and I guess we're uncovering it, but I'm just wondering what's the staff assessment? Is this like a one-time thing or is this like, it's post-COVID therefore, or do you think it's more reflective of a trend?
So we have seen the trend for the last couple of years where there is a lower enrollment at McAuliffe Alternative School. Conversations are starting as to look at what are some of the possibilities of increasing that enrollment. One of the things we had looked at, that was one of the reasons we were able to offer the TK class there last year. So we'll continue to have those conversations and it will be something we'd like to bring back to the board to have a little bit further, because again, I think this is the first time really seeing some of those true numbers stripped away from those double choices.
Sylvia, did you have a question?
I did, but it got answered.
Okay, Sati.
So I have a question I'm looking into the wait list again. For example, the TK is there and the K is there. So the TK, is it guaranteed that for them in the same Faria they'll continue, or what is that? Why is so much wait list of TK in Faria?
So that is one of,
That's a-
when we shared the information about TK classes, we haven't determined, we had said we were going to go to the full implementation of TK in 25-26. And then next year we'll begin having the conversation as far as the alt schools, whether or when they would get added onto the TKs. I'm sorry.
And I was going to say the color on the screen is for kindergarten.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's not for TK. There's only TK offered at McAuliffe.
Okay, okay, then I got it.
Yes, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Just jumping ahead.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, moving right along, Erin.
So later on this evening, we are bringing a proposed update to one of our board policies. This is about our list of enrollment priorities for intra-district open enrollment. So I did have staff place a copy of the board policy. And if you'll see, I believe it's on page 2. We are suggesting to add a 7th item, which would be for students currently enrolled with CUSD. Right now, private students are able to apply for open enrollment, and we would still keep that as something we would offer, that they could still apply for open enrollment. We would just want a priority for students who are currently enrolled with CUSD. So this is the 7th item. So it would follow, as listed on the slide, the sibling priority and then the large school priority that was added through the work of the task force this past year.
And on your handout, it's actually page 7. 'cause we
Okay,
did
I'm
large
sorry.
print.
Okay.
You should have a red highlighted on page 3.
Yes.
And that concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any other questions.
Questions? Ava?
Regarding the board policies. Adding in any student currently attending CUSD schools. I guess, like if someone was attending a private school, they open enroll into a neighborhood school a week, month later, they could say they're and then apply for alternative schools for interdistrict transfers.
So if they're at a private school, they would always have the right to come back to their neighborhood school. They would open it, they would be placed in their neighborhood school or overflow. If they are at a private school, currently, they could come in and open enroll to be at an alt school and they get the same priority as any other family living in CUSD. What this change in policy would say is that our current families attending CUSD schools get a priority over families that are currently not enrolled in a CUSD school. This came to light when we were going through the wait list and when we were looking at FREA and making offers for the 3rd grade at FREA, there were several families that are actually at a private school. They're not even enrolled in our school district right now, and yet they got a priority over families that resided in CUSD.
Okay, so. I understand that. I'm just thinking that like. They could switch back to our neighborhood schools for a week or a month and then still be able to enroll, but their priority, they would have to make that switch before they get on the priority list then?
So if they, let me make sure I'm good. So if they are outside attending a private school, they come back into their neighborhood school and they want to apply for alternative school, as long as they were enrolled in a CUSD neighborhood school during the time of open enrollment for an alt school, then they would have the same priority as any family in CUSD.
Okay,
Did that?
yes.
Satish and then Sylvia.
So previous slide, please. So, okay, now we have, so 744 wait list in Korea. And especially the 3rd grade and 4th grade, if you take it, that's roughly about 250 kids in the wait list, right? 400 to 650 or close to 700. Right? So between those 2 colors, the top, second,
The dark
colors.
blue. Oh,
Yeah,
red.
the 2 colors from the top, not top, second and the 3rd color.
Uh-huh.
So that's roughly about 250 to 300. That means 3rd and 4th grade, we have so much of wait list. So traditionally it could be like a 2 or 3 openings would be there and we have 300 or 400 out, right? Are we planning to, because just for the sake of it, they're doing it, or people should have they should get some, idea that how many seats are there kind of thing. So like each grade around 200 kids are in the wait list. Does it make sense? So, I understand from the kindergarten perspective, people can rush in because there are 100 seats. This one seems quite a little bit odd here, right? So because you're higher grades have bigger wait list than the lower grades.
I think this,
Thoughts on that?
this would be, again, this is the first opportunity that we're having to share with the board. This would definitely be, data that we want to share with our enrollment task force next year and see, if what their thoughts are. They might come forward with some different recommendations, but, I think because we did develop that committee, we could use that group that's already formed to take a look at this and share the information. Or the board could choose to come back and we could have a further discussion on it. But I do think that is an opportunity for our enrollment task force to dive in.
It is not distributed well from that point. I thought that, or I've been thinking that when you go higher the grades, it will become more like a pyramid. We'll have a number of wait lists will be much lower. But this true picture doesn't look that way. It's more or less the same blocks across.
Sylvia.
I'm gonna ask my question, but I think I know the answer. As I'm looking
Ask
at,
it anyway.
intra-district means this is like, they're within the district already and it's just switching from school to school.
Yes.
Mhm.
Inter-district is outside. the
Outside
district.
coming in, okay. Because I was about to ask about staff priority. Because we have like staff who live outside of the district and their kids can come in and also, or not priority, but they're able to attend our schools. But I think that's a different policy, so never mind. Thank you for confirming.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Erin. Thank you for being here, Kristen. Anything else we need to do for our study session?
That's it.
Okay, so we have a bit of a break.
Wrap up. We do.
Okay, so we're back at 6. Okay. Welcome back. We're starting our regular board meeting, and we are going to start with communication. Do we have any communication tonight?
Yes, we do. We have CEA President Kate Lee.
Okay, welcome, Kate.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Yao, Executive Cabinet, CEA members, and our CUSD parents and community. Happy summer vacation. Congratulations to all our teachers and certificated professionals at our sites with finishing up last Tuesday this week for the school year. And an early happy summer vacation. Congratulations to everyone at Murdoch Portal, whose year doesn't end until next week on June 18th. Enjoy your summer, relax, spend time with family and friends, have lots of me time instead of student time, which I know you have spent so much of your time this year doing over the next couple of months. Well, I can't believe it's been a full year since I first spoke with all of you at our June board meeting in 2023, a year ago. You're all probably feeling more like, wow, will this year of Kate and all her members ever end? I mean, speaking up and speaking out ever end? So may have a little different perspective on that. But I honestly, and on a more serious note, I really do want to extend my appreciation for being able to work with you this year. One of my goals was to help the board and Superintendent Yao and the executive cabinet to understand the complexities and difficult challenges that our teachers and in all of our different sites face each and every day in trying to meet the academic and social emotional needs of our students and their families of the students, to understand the vast breadth of the different job positions and responsibilities of our special education members in elementary and middle school, and also to understand that. So I really wanted to start the year by introducing our directors who represent our elementary and middle school, as well as our special education professionals and writing emails that would tell their personal stories and situations in their classrooms. I felt it was really essential for the board and the district management to understand and connect to the concerns and issues that prevent us from supporting and teaching our students so they can reach their fullest potential. I really appreciate the board's thoughtful email replies to our members throughout the year, from Trustee Sylvia Leong's responses earlier in the year, and Trustee Vogel's responses throughout the year, and Trustee Jerry Liu's responses this past month. In particular, Jerry had was assigned to it when there were 250 coming in, and the time that you took to read through them all and to just the very thoughtful, personalized responses that our members got back from all of you. So thank you all very much for listening to and valuing our concerns this year. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, we have signed our tentative agreements with the district. We're now currently in the ratification process. The ballot is out to our members and it closes on June 17th. We will notify the district of the results by June 21st. I look forward to next year, continuing to represent our CEA members as their president and working together with district management and the school board to meet the priorities of our members and the priorities of CUSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Public comment. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report. Superintendent Yao.
Thank you. So we have completely wrapped up the year. We had our 8th grade promotions, and just, I think that culmination and the excitement, a lot has happened over the last month or so, and it's always nice just to have things finalized and going into summer. With that being said, we had our last 8th grade promotion on Tuesday evening, and on Wednesday morning, we started summer training. And I am thrilled with our teachers that are turning out for our summer training. So had the opportunity the last 2 days to stop in and visit the Portrait of a Learner training that's going on. We have over 50 staff members, teachers that are there participating. From a first-year teacher all the way to some of our very veteran teachers. And so just the conversations that are already taking place in that first 2 days, our principals are all there. It's super energizing to see what's happening in the room, and they'll continue for the next 3 days. They'll focus on some of the project-based learning. So again, they're just diving in, and lots of questions, lots of just healthy, hearty conversations. And I know Allison is putting some information in the Friday memo as well. In addition, we also, with our partnership with NG, we did a STEAM training for our teachers today. About 50 teachers participated in that. And then we also had a phonics training on Wednesday that about 30 to 40 teachers participated in. And so where many people that first day after school is out, maybe thinking vacation, I really attribute to our teachers, they're already in that mindset of let's begin planning and thinking and preparing. And so, a huge thank you and a gratitude, also an understanding for those teachers that aren't able to be part of the trainings now. We know that there are many others that are interested, and we'll try to catch them up next year so that they can be part of it as well. So we can keep that momentum going. The other exciting part is just seeing the work with the Portrait of a Learning, and knowing that when we come back in the fall, we'll have an update to share with you. Most likely invite some of our participants from this training to even share the work that they're doing. If you remember, we had introduced the roadmap at the last board advance. And so doing those frequent check-ins where we are with the roadmap, that was the 12 months laying out and holding each other accountable that, we're going to begin to check in and make sure we're making that progress. And so just really excited about all the momentum that we have moving forward. And like I said, I hope everybody enjoys their summer. I'm thankful for everybody that's taking the time right now to attend the trainings before they get to enjoy their summer. So thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Information, review of the 23-24 local indicators. Would that be?
This will be Allison.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. This is one of our required annual. It's a requirement as part of the LCAP that we present the local indicators as information at the same board meeting where we approve the LCAP. And so we're going to go to the slides. Yes. Most of this information is
not new to you. It shows up in a lot of other reports along the way. All of this information is aligned to the state priorities that are listed here. And each of these indicators, we're following a template that's provided by the state to meet the requirements of the local indicators. And the purpose of, thank you, purpose of this is to consider the state priorities as we're building the LCAP and thinking about our plans for next school year. It's a self-reflection process. And so we're not really trying to get perfect scores. It's more the intention of taking a look at these different areas and improving over time and using the information to guide our decision-making and planning as part of the LCAP. So, you've seen this report. If you have been on the board for years, you've seen this many times. So hopefully it feels familiar. We are trying to make sure that we get a rating of met for each of the areas. The three options are met, not met, or not met for 2 or more years. And it shows up as part of the California dashboard. And in order to get a MET rating, all that means is that we are using the tools and updating our self-reflection annually and giving a report at a board meeting to you. And then after the meeting concludes, I enter the information in the state dashboard and it shows up as part of the California dashboard. And that's how we get a rating of MET as long as we meet the timeline. So the first area that we're required to report on is basic services. And this is not new information. You've seen this information in other formats. We take a look at our Williams reports, as well as something called the facility inspection tool. That is also an annual process that occurs. That information also shows up in the SARC reports that you see annually as well as information that comes forward from our reports from human resources. So these areas are talking about teacher credentialing, student access to textbooks, as well as areas of deficiency or extreme deficiency at our school sites. So the top section there is teacher credentialing aspect, and this was done mid-year. It's been in some of the LCAP updates along the way. And this is saying that, you know, we have a high percentage of fully credentialed teachers at this moment in time in February when we collected the information. We had 98% fully credentialed. We typically do have a small percentage of teachers who are working to complete their credential within the first 12 months of hiring, and that's been true, you know, each year that we've been doing this report. Our students have their textbooks in the second bullet there, and then in terms of the FIT report, this is done in the business office, the facility inspection report. This is analyzed annually for things that we can correct here internally through our work order process. And then some things are larger areas of need that would need to be addressed through other types of funding, like potentially bond funding. So those are the required areas under basic services. The other required area here is implementation of academic standards. And for this tool, we gather information from the principals and their leadership teams, and then principals meet with their small group directors to have a discussion about this. This is an area that we expect fluctuation over time. We know that our textbooks and frameworks periodically get refreshed. So when we've had something in place for a while and we're really solid, it's a high rating. When it's something new, it goes back down because we're starting again. So that's what we can see here. For example, in world language, we know that we just trained the teachers in the new framework and you just approved a new textbook. So we're at the beginning stage of that. And then as they get more comfortable, we'll be giving that a higher rating. In science, you recently approved a new STEM scopes curriculum for grades 3 to 5. So that's the reason why that number is a little lower. It's normal to have a cycle in these areas. We never stay at a 5 because we're constantly refreshing things and improving our learning. And that's just the normal flow of things. Visual and performing arts, we also have a lower rating there because that area is primarily funded at the elementary schools with parent donation funds. We have strength in our music area in elementary schools now with our Prop 28 and district funds, being able to provide that TK through 5. But we do have variation in art because most of the funding is still coming from parent donation at this point. So that's an area for growth in the future. We also are required to take a look at family engagement, and we use a variety of inputs to inform our thinking here. We do the annual LCAP survey that you saw earlier this year in the spring. And then principals and leadership teams are having conversations. And then I do want to have a thank you to our parent liaison group. We have a conversation with them and share this tool with them. And they give us a lot of really important information about their impressions about how we're doing in these different required areas. So we're required to use this tool that asks us to rate all of these different areas. And just like in the academic standards area, we're really looking each year at, where are some areas where we want to identify strengths and where are some areas that we want to improve. And I think, coming back in the years since COVID, we know we're in a time of building up those relationships again. And that's a focus for all school sites, making sure that families are feeling engaged and involved in all the things that we're doing. The one on the bottom there has been traditionally lower than some of the others. That helping parents understand their legal rights is always, challenging because there's so many things to know there. So I think that's just, we're always aware of that and trying to have further outreach in that area. Input for decision making. This is also an area that shows up on our LCAP survey, you might remember. So again, seeing that same reflection of the information that was shown on the LCAP survey, that, really helping families to engage in our advisory groups and decision making and really forming those partnerships and working really strategically with families is, we're always striving to do better in that area. It's a strength and we want to get better. See, I feel like I might have skipped one. There. Okay. And the next area is school climate, and we're required to survey the students in this area regarding connection and school safety. And so we ask our staff leadership teams for feedback in this area. We have questions on our parent survey about it, and we do survey the students directly through the California Healthy Kids Survey and the Panorama Survey. So in this one, we're just, wanting to get some feedback from the leadership teams on these areas. And it's kind of a nice counterpart to the parent survey. And we can see here that our staff is saying what we also saw in the parent survey. The kids are feeling comfortable and welcome. There's valuing of our very global community here in CUSD, and staff recognizes that some of the peer-to-peer interactions we need to help strengthen. Sometimes there are conflicts between the students, and you can see that in this data, the recognition of that. Also, we've been focusing on sharing social emotional learning, skill information with parents, and this was an area that we have been trying to boost up over the last LCAP cycle, and we can see that we are seeing strength. And in middle school, it's the same kind of trend. Lots of strength in the school communities around environment and feelings of belonging and feeling comfortable in class. And sometimes students have conflicts. And so wanting to strengthen that area, this is why we have a focus on PBIS and a sense of belonging and positive behavior in our LCAP plan. So in terms of the Panorama survey, this is the spring result. The top section there is showing favorable responses in sense of belonging for grades 4 and 5. And then the bottom bar is favorable in grades 6 through 8. In terms of the last 5 years or so, we have been anywhere between 63 and 67% favorable for fourth through fifth grade. Some years we have included third grade in the mix. In sixth through eighth grade, we've been between 47 and 51% favorable. This 51 is the highest number we've seen over the last 5 years. So we've seen a nice increase in the middle school responses. You can see the particular areas here. This is the questions that comprise that summary score for grades 4, 5 and grades 6, 8. We have had, a lot of feedback from teachers that maybe some of the questions are hard to understand and maybe not capturing the full picture for students in Panorama. So we are going to be putting this survey on pause for next year. We're not planning to renew it. We're going to lean into the checks. And while we're working on Portrait of a Learner and looking at alignment, we're going to take some time to think about, what is the right tool for measuring where we're going with sense of belonging. We know the schools have been working so hard on this, and we have a lot of really positive responses on surveys that sites have been doing on their own. And so we want to just take some time to give that some more thought. We are also using the California Healthy Kids Survey in middle school. This year, grades 6 through 8 were surveyed. This is the state recommended tool as part of local indicators. And in 7th and 8th grade, we had between 94 and 98% of the kids take the survey. In 6th grade, we did have an administration error that happened at one of our sites. So we had only about half the students overall taking this survey. So, and parents are able to opt out. So a higher opt out in that grade level as well. So. The California Healthy Kids Survey asks specific questions around school safety. That is one of the required areas. And so we can see how those results fell out. The last time we surveyed the students, we only surveyed 8th grade. And so these results are slightly higher than the last time we did the survey for 8th grade. You might remember we reported on the LCAP parent survey. And so this is the section of the survey that talks about school culture and climate. And we had approximately a third of our families, a little bit less than a third of our families complete the survey. And we saw very, very strong positive responses for how students are feeling at school. And just overall very positive, although it was relatively lower, that the one about students interacting with each other relatively lower compared to the top two, as we shared. Okay, the other area is broad course of study. And this is making sure that all students have access to just what it says, a broad course of study. We've made a lot of improvements here in this area over time, specifically in regards to middle school. In prior years, we had reported that there were differences for students who needed intervention or who were in ELD or special education, having to come to zero period in order to access their electives. And now that has been corrected with the new middle school schedules, and students have access to those things within their school day. We've also increased our music with district funds over time in the elementary schools. And so that's been also an area of growth. So we have achieved those consistent district schedules, the accessing of the 2 electives, the inclusion of intervention at the middle school, but also the elementary schools, adding in reading intervention at all of our schools, as well as math at our higher needs schools. And as I said, the expanded music. We are required to call out any areas of need or, barriers to a broad course of study for all students. So I have been calling out what I mentioned earlier, that we are not providing art instruction with district funds at the elementary level. Those are provided by parent funds, which results in quite a lot of variation between sites and student experience in art. So I know that that's a topic we've discussed in prior years, and something we want to all keep an eye on as we plan for the future. So those are the required areas.
Thank you very much, Allison. Do we have any questions from the board? Satish and then Eva?
Thanks, Alison. This is a detailed report. I have a question on slide number 17. Yeah. So the question number 2 for sixth grade, 6th to 8th grades, this 38%, right? How connected do you feel that adults in your school? So this looks really low, and how is it compared to the previous years? The second item, second question in the grade 6 to 8, yeah. Yeah, grade 6 to 8, how was the response?
Your microphone.
For the specific question, the one that says 38.
Uh-huh.
I can pull up last year's survey for that area and
Yeah, that's fine. But do you have some, is it same or is it better or it did not go well or anything? Yeah.
that one has been historically low. And it's something we've been talking about with the middle school principals, and, you know, they've been focusing on as they work on their area around belonging and PBIS. You know, I think they just received their checks reports, the California Healthy Kids Survey, and there are some similar questions on that survey as well. And so they haven't had a chance to do this yet, but they'll have an opportunity to cross-check, you know, are we seeing those same results on the other survey? You know, what can they kind of glean from that? This year also, we did do student focus groups at each school to find out more about what students were thinking about these results and, you know, what they had to say. And so principals will be using that information as we go into next year, as they plan, you know, what they would like to do to continue to foster that sense of belonging for students.
It would be good to get this lower ranked items, probably a trend, how it is. So at least this one seems very, you know, even though our average is 51, this is 38. This looks not very.
And this one had been consistently one of our lower scores, and I think some of the information that we gathered from the student focus groups probably provides much more insight than the survey results. And so, you know, there's that value of those face-to-face conversations and listening to the students. And, you know, that's part of the reason I think pausing this for a year using the panorama is just, you know, let's look at what some other tools are, because is that truly representing? And if it is, you know, what are the things that we need to work on or not? So, you know, student feedback is crucial to us.
If we can have some target for next year, anyway, we are end of the year, it's done. So the next year it will be great.
Eva?
I like to piggyback what Satish was saying is it'd be good to see. I believe these are the panorama questions.
Yes.
Okay, it would be good to kind of see the history if we have been improving or not in terms of the survey. And is the panorama like a statewide?
No.
No, this is something that we came up with, right?
Yes.
And then California Healthy Kids Survey is a state survey. That's typically their
That's it.
questions are the same.
The
And
same as
as in the year before, the questions that they've asked in the California Healthy Kids.
yes.
Maybe that, or like, I don't know how much of our questions have changed in the panorama, but I like Satish's idea to see how much it have changed throughout the years in the past. Like, have we been improving in those areas? I love the idea that you all are having student focus groups to kind of get at what is going on with the students and where we can improve. The question I had was, I believe back at slide 6, basic services. It said in the FIT report, which is the facility inspection tool report, by having 2,386 deficiencies and 9 extreme deficiencies. And these are just like overall, like someone actually went out there and inspected our facilities. I was wondering, of the 8 extreme for this deficiencies, are are they in line with our priority of our facilities management plan?
If I understand the question, so is the fit report and the results of the fit report, is it in alignment with what our,
Priorities in our facilities management plan, in which we are kind of basing on where we're going with the bond?
I would maybe categorize it as we have our facilities master plan that has identified the needs of the district.
Yes,
There'll be things in there that obviously have higher needs. The fit report is actually a year-to-year picture of where we are and our attempt to address those deficiencies. So I would say the fit report is really more about a year-to-year check to make sure that we're addressing any identified deficiencies at that point in time, but the longer term needs of the district as far as, you know, the facility plan and all those things. I would just say that the fit report should help highlight anything that should be on our facility and master plan as far as these are things that we need to address as a district. But the intent is really just to highlight those deficiencies since the last time we've had the inspector come out and take a look at the sites.
right, and
If I could
done by
add,
a
the
third.
8
party.
extreme deficiencies could be a particular site that has a deficiency issue, where I think the difference in the facility master plan is more talking about the global of the work done at all the campuses. So under that 8 extreme deficiencies, it could be calling out something that is particular to a campus that year that they've been expected.
I'm just having a hard time opening these fit reports because the font weren't aligning or something weird like that. So I can't tell what's in there. So I'm hoping, because these are inspections done by a third party, that gives us a different perspective of what are the needs of our facilities, and I'm hoping that that we take those into consideration and looking at the facilities master plan. Not saying that it's off, we don't know what the data is saying, but considering them and so that we're kind of aligned, because it is someone coming from a third party, and I'm assuming it's someone from the state.
And we'll resend the link, but I also have the link that was attached to the document we shared. The fit files were really good for them.
Anything else, Ava?
No, thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
Thanks. Just wanted to kind of get back to the discussion earlier about school climate and then the suspension of Panorama and leaning into checks. I guess, it sounds like there's a sense that Panorama is not as much value, and you talked about that maybe people didn't understand the question, so I'm wondering that I feel like there is value in being able to ask questions that we specify. Is there's a question in there that talks about, do you feel like you belong? And that very much aligns with our sense of belonging target. Checks, it seems to me it just doesn't align as well with our goal. And it seems like and then you talked about, and I think it's really great that we're having these sort of focus groups, right? But focus groups by necessity, there's going to be sampling error. I don't know how they're picked. They're probably volunteers, I'm guessing. And so you're going to have populations that are going to be more willing to volunteer, other ones that are not. And you're going to get, I think it's not a really representative of, I think the kind of statistical, quantitative results that you would get with Panorama. So I'm wondering, it's just a suggestion, throwing it out there. You study this far more than I have, that if it's a problem, if you think it's a problem with people not understanding, maybe we could explain these explicitly before the survey. If it's that we're asking the wrong things, we could ask a different set of questions. But I think the ability to ask the question to something like, do you feel like you belong, when our goal sense of belonging, it seems like a valuable tool. So just a reflection on that. The other one was earlier, there were a set of these sort of, the surveys prior to that, the school climate feedback, and it says it was provided leadership team survey for staff. Is that just certificated staff, or is it all staff at a school?
It
Wondering.
is typically certificated staff that work with the principal in the leadership team.
Okay.
However, the leadership team is defined at the school site.
They define, okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'll just note, one of the items here, whether, the kids getting along with each other, 20% seems to be pretty high to me, unless we think it's a sampling error, all right? That's like, we're at 5 middle schools, that's like one entire middle school not feeling like the kids get along. So that, I don't think, unless we think this is a one-off thing or there are measurement issues here, I'd be interested in sort of, the focus groups that are being run, understanding what we think the causes of some of these might be. And I'd be interested in maybe some future board meeting, understanding what are some of the actions we can take as a result of this and other sort of, data we're getting. Okay, so that's it. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thanks. Sylvia, did you have anything?
My questions were already asked.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much, Allison, and I guess this is going to come up a little later on for approval, right?
It's just an information item, so.
No, but is there something?
LCAP will come up.
Yeah, LCAP will come
Right,
up later.
yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. Did we have any public comment on this one?
No, we did not.
Okay. Moving on to discussion action, adoption of resolution about the election to authorize the bond.
I think you skipped one. I think you skipped 7.1 relocation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. Okay, so this is a discussion item, 7, relocation of the district office. Oh, how could I forget that? Okay, so any presentation or any comments from you?
There are, so there's 2 presentations that are attached to the board doc. The first one is the one that you've seen before. If we could bring that one up, and we'll kind of skip through. And just a reminder, based on the last couple conversations we've had, we had left it off with trying to clarify from the original options. We came back with 6 different options. 5 of the options involve relocating our administrative offices here from South Mary over to the Meyerholtz. And then the 6th option was to remain here at Mary Avenue and look at other alternatives for Meyerholtz. So again, we brought back these 5 just to represent them to you. These 5 would be moving to Meyerholtz. I think from staff, we had shared that the option 1 of relocating to Meyerholtz without any renovations would be very much a challenge for us. When reflecting back, even when district office relocated to this building, which was set up as an office building, there was some modifications that had to be done. So my concern would be if we did move over to Meyerholtz with no renovations, we get over there, most likely there is going to have to be some work done. And then we'd be searching to find where we're going to fund that from. We do have some money in the building maintenance, but then that pulls away from that money being used on our school sites. And so, right now, I think schools are the priority. The other, just some of those challenges of moving over to Meyerholtz right now is, parking is a concern if we don't reallocate some of the parking or the blacktop over there, and then timing wise. So option 1 really is difficult for staff to really visualize how that would happen. And so our recommendation would be not even to consider option 1. Option 2, 3, 4, and 5 do require funds. Those are funds that we do not have. I think our goal all along had been to avoid using general fund money to do this move. We wanted to protect that. It would require going out for some kind of a loan to get this amount of money, whether it's even the 3 million or all the way up to the 8 million. It does require a loan. I know last time we showed there's a variety of different loans. It could be a 15-year loan, a 30-year loan, could be at the full cost of the loan of what we're currently paying here. It could be lesser amount and have some savings. So those 4 options are still at play. I know one of the questions back from the board is, what does option 5 even look like at a $3.6 million? It's really difficult for us to say without on this short time to have the architect go out and say, we could do this, we could do that. Again, my concern is if we don't have a better idea as we move over there and it ends up costing more than what we even originally planned. And so just kind of reflecting in our conversations over our budget and where we are as a district, I think one of our goals had always been is to continue to explore how could we have additional revenue streams coming in, because then that allows us to give money back into our students. We just heard earlier, art is one of our areas that we've talked about. We are not in a place where we've been able to fund the art. So I think continuing to look as a district, how can we make sure that we have, in addition to our normal funding, are there ways to generate additional funding? So based on all of that, and Mamu, can you switch to the other slide deck? I'll talk to this. So based on that, again, it's board's decision, but as a staff, our recommendation is really because of looking at the costs, the timing, is to remain here in Mary Avenue. We did talk to our property managers here. They are allowing us, if we choose to rescind our departure notice, we would maintain the same terms that we had. We would be locked in till 2033 under this loan. What that would do would be allow us to explore other options for the district office. I think that is still the intent, is to move our district office into something that the district owns. We have other properties. It could be Meyerholt still at some point. You know, I know there was a conversation about exploring TRC and the kit stop. And so that would give us some time to do that. Meanwhile, we'd be able to lease out Meyerholtz. And that would be a conversation for another night, what that looks like to lease out Meyerholtz and what that would involve. And then that third one would really be planning for the future. You know, if we know that our plan is to move the district office, how do we ensure that in 5 years or 10 years, we're not back having the same conversation and saying we're going to need to take out a certificate of participation, you know, we're going to have a loan. Is there a way to designate, as we're leasing out the property over the course of these years, do we designate some of that income into a reserve, for a building maintenance reserve that then we are able to use when we move the district office, and it doesn't come out of the general funds, it doesn't require going out for another or a loan in that sense. So that's just thinking from the staff. Again, we don't have any additional information to share with you as the specificity of those loans, but really just wanted to share that. That's kind of our thinking. The other piece is that we're now into June. If we maintain and continue with our notice to move out of this building, we'd need to be out by April 1st of 2025. So timing is a little bit of a concern, because if we do have to do any renovations, uncertain whether we'd have to go through DSA on any of those. You know, we're talking several months for that. Those factors all play into, is it in our best interest right now to go ahead and maintain at Mary Avenue? You know, our office spaces here are adequate. They're not luxurious by any means, but they're adequate. They fit our needs. It gives us the opportunity to explore some other opportunities while still maybe having a revenue stream come into the district.
Okay, thank you. So comments, questions from the, who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, Sati.
I think I missed the last meeting. So anyway, but I think first time when I was probably a strong proponent for moving to my house, right? So I know I can understand the challenges. I was thinking about that as well, because how much for the 3 million watt we can get it, right? Kind of things, or this would be beneficial only if we do not put a lot of money. Okay, that would put it the other way. So more money you're putting it, again, like, is it worth or not? That's a biggest thing. So where do you put the line, right? That's a challenge. A lot of pros are there if you're moving there, but at the same time, the money is a big constraint in terms of if you're, so my view here. So the question here is, like, let's say we go with this option for the blue color one, continue to lease here. Is there, and you said that till 33, we can be here. So is there a way for us to break it if needed?
Yeah, I did ask, check with Chris, I'm following up on that. If we do recommit, we are locked until 2033. There is no 5-year release time in it. We would be locked until
because
2033.
let's say we find some way to move to our own facility with some money, or either Mary or warehouse or wherever we are going, or our own any facility. So we'll have to wait another 10 years then. Probably the cost will be much more also then. Right, because I don't think we'll be in a better time. If you see it right now, we have constraints. So 10 years from now, I don't know whether we'll have enough money or the money would have gone up by then. So my view here is, yeah, I think at present, if you take it, yeah, continuing would be a better idea. But can we get something like, you know, some clause, like, you know, let's say 5 years from today or 3 years from today, something like that. At least some flexibility in this lease. That would help us to make some decision, or we may continue 10 years if no other option. But I know we probably will have to pay a little bit more than this, but I would like to know or hear that how much is that difference, if so.
So we would have to go back to our landlord and ask if there's any possibility of adjusting, because what was shared with us is that we could withdraw our departure, but that if we come back, we are locked into 2033. There is no break in that. I guess to that point as well is if in that interim of the 10 years, we find if we have money and we want to relocate district office, you would weigh I don't know if there's a buyout clause in our lease that we could explore. I don't believe there is one from my reading it, and then you'd have to weigh, is it cost better to pay off whatever we owe them to get an early departure to savings? I think of it as short term and long term. And I know 9 years sounds like a long time, but it goes very quickly. And I think it gives us time to plan, and become financially stronger than where we are now.
I think one more observation here is I think we did not get enough time also, we as a group, 2 months of planning or 2 months of exploring things. It was too less, my view, because in these 2 months, we are kind of concluding that, hey, money is too much or we cannot do too much. And these are the only options, right? So we should have planned it better. Or even if you're planning for future, I think we need to take time and do this.
Okay, Eva.
I like to move to Meyer Holtz without any loans. It's just save money because we're not charging ourselves rent. And currently with the leasing, the needs are we're leasing 22,900 square foot. And we're only needing 16,972 square foot. That means we're not utilizing 5,949 square foot. Also, in the last budget, it showed that we're going to be deficit spending for the next 3 years. And we need to be financially responsible. If we're not paying rent and we're at Meyer Holtz, we're looking at saving $470,960. And I understand with when moves, there's going to be some adjustments, but not to the tune of a few $1 million, which the loan is asking for the cost of the fitting. I think that is still the most affordable option, and we're saving money. I mean, I want us to get out of deficit spending as much as possible, and the faster we can get to having a reserve closer to 10%, because it just doesn't look good for deficit spending. And it's not necessary to, if we have a property we can move to, we should move to over there to save money. And that puts our district in a better area, and then we can better serve our students. And if we're looking into further things, we're saving that money every year at the very least. And from what I saw in the budget from all the leases, it's around $5 or $6 million, correct me, from the last budget report of how much we are getting from the rent. And I like to look at if it's something that we're looking into renovating or adding more money to it, while we're saving money, we can look at how much that budget is spent elsewhere for the building fund. I don't know what it's spent on, but that's pretty good amount of money, and that we're saving basically $407,000 every year that we can build up. Like we're saying, building funds and stuff. But I know there's some costs, but I don't think that cost will come to the tune of a few $1 million without taking out a loan.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Jerry, Sylvia?
I'll go next. I guess I have a different way of looking at the math here. I think put simply, what I see is by staying here, we pay $500,000 continue sort of the annual lease payments. And then we have a campus that we can lease out for, I don't know, 2 million or so. I think we leased out Regnard at 3 million. I understand that Meyer Holtz isn't that. That was close to $5 a square foot. Let's use the last meeting. I think Terra Realty gave us a low end of 375. That's what, Sarah and Luther were asking for. So I'd say 2 million. So what I see here very simply is we spend $500,000. And then we free up our property, we can lease out for 2 million. So I actually see a positive cash flow that way. I don't understand how staying here saves us money. Because then there is a campus we can lease out, we can no longer lease out, and that revenue goes away. So I've been pretty, I think, consistent with my view. I support the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Sylvia?
So I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, I think I agree with Ava in that ideally, I want the district office to be at Meyerholtz, and I think I've very much stated all the reasons why I think there's benefits to it. The money issue, I definitely I agree with Jerry's point that yes, we could rent it out and potentially get that, let's say 2 million a year. But then I feel like I just don't know who would want to rent it to then be kicked out 10 years later. So I just don't know what the reality is of actually being able to rent to a tenant who would knowingly then be told that they need to move later on. And so it might be more difficult to rent out is my thinking. I just don't know what the reality is of renting out to a school or to something else too, with the intent of moving to Meyerholtz eventually. I feel like if we're basically if we're going to rent out Meyerholtz, I feel like we're also saying goodbye to the district office being at Meyerholtz. It doesn't make sense. I just don't know what tenant would want to move in there. Just to be kicked out later. So I feel like if that's the case, and then we're okay, that we're basically then saying the district office will most likely never be at Meyerholtz and would be somewhere else instead. So if it's going to be TRC, if it's going to be KidStop, I think that there's potentials there. But then I also feel like we're in the same situation of it's going to cost money to renovate those areas as well. So if it's going to cost money to renovate at TRC and KidStop, and it's going to cost money to renovate at Meyerholtz, I mean, they're somewhat equal in my mind, and with a slight advantage from Meyerholtz, because again, the whole campus feeling and the ability to do big campus-wide events or district-wide events is all the benefits that we get at Meyerholtz that we don't get at TRC or KidStop. It would be it'd be a lateral move, I guess, in terms of the facilities. TRC KidStop is smaller, and it would be not dissimilar from where we are now, just mostly office buildings, versus the campus would give us just a bigger place to do more things campus-wide. And I also have to go back to the fact that, again, going back to the 7-Eleven recommendation, going back to what we know our committee had recommended, going back to knowing that the neighbors had asked for this as well. I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable with doing a COP, because no matter what, if we do that 3 million or the lowest option, the option 5, we'd be spending less money than we are now. So, I mean, that's where I am. And I know that brings us to no consensus at all. So, but I mean, I think I'd want to know, I guess for next steps, I'd want to know when is the last date that we have to commit to the landlord here. How much time between now and then do we have to continue to discuss this? Do we have to make a decision by or we could let him know by next week, or do we have a month or something like that? What's the time frame on that?
So we're still operating under our current terms and conditions. As we had shared with you, that we had originally give them our original notice under the current terms and conditions. as Superintendent Yale mentioned, that they have they're now allowing us to rescind our termination notification. So we would go back to the current terms. So there really, as we mentioned, there isn't any other out provision at this point in time. I would just presume right now that they would like us to sign the extension for the last 10 years of our agreement as soon as possible. I mean, we haven't signed anything yet, so I think the Tianza Properties is anticipating us wishing to stay here at Mary, because that's the direction I had asked them based off of the instruction we got in here to see what if we could. So I don't think there's another timeline that we have to be sensitive other than what Stacy mentioned. If the board was to make a decision to consider us moving, the timeline to make the change that Meyerholtz is getting smaller and smaller. So that's really the only time frame that we're need to be cognizant of. If the decision is to stay, that's great. If the decision is to move, we don't have a lot of time to make those kinds of decisions.
Anything else, Sylvia?
That's it for you.
Listening to Sylvia also reminded me that moving to Meyerholtz will allow, it's already considered the square footage IT to move over there from the maintenance operations transportation for sure, which will give room for central kitchen, which we have been promoting. And we've looked at the alternatives for central kitchen. And I remember if we were to go to Kid Stop, it would cost $2 million just to build a simple structure to take everything down for a central kitchen. And the most affordable option for the central kitchen is at MOT, because it is in an area where they already receive deliveries and such, because the MOT has been there. And if we have our district office at Meyerholtz, it allows the IT to move, and the most affordable option that we concluded as a board was to have central kitchen at MOT. I mean, that's why we considered in the beginning moving to Meyerholtz and going back to it. And having larger events and having that optional space is great, especially if we're looking into having more of the community and the sense of belonging, and having all of our staff come together and having that space that is not impinging upon each of the different school sites space. So I think considering where we want to go with the central kitchen, having it MOT was the most affordable, at least from what I remember in our discussions. And that was like one of our things that we thought was a priority for the district, is having a larger central kitchen to accommodate the demands of their students in these times. So I think I understand there may be some costs, but I don't think there may be costs significant enough temporarily for even the minimal amount of $3.68 million. There is going to be some costs, but I think those costs are not going to cost that much. And, that's just further evidence that I can say that moving to Meyerholtz as our district office also gives that room for IT to move to Meyerholtz, and so that we could have that central kitchen process start.
I would throw
So
out
what-
too, as we, because I think sometimes our conversations have focused on Meyerholtz, but remember, as a district, we have other properties that we own and have available. The TRC Kit Stop actually includes Bright Horizons is there as well. That had been our original one of the looks at that we'd had for district office. We'd moved away from that when we were talking about central kitchen. We also have Sarah and Luther. So there are other options out there of properties that we own. And I'm not saying we're moving to any one of those, but it would give us the opportunity to explore some of those other options as well.
So my position is, it's all about the money for me. And I think over the next few years, as we transition from basic aid to different sources of funding and back and forth, and we don't know. I think this stability of our finances over the next few years is unknown at this point. And I'm all for getting the revenue from Meyer Holtz, so I support the district's recommendation to study.
Can I add?
Sure.
So I think I asked for this breakup, right? Then is there a short-term lease also? Can I? Because what I'm trying to do here is I think we all understand that money is important, revenue is important. At the same time, instead of making a quick decision either this way or that way, right? If we can have some more time for you staff, you all can explore, as exactly you said, that seeing the bigger picture, any other better place and things that may need another 1 year for us to brainstorm or get something, some idea, right? So can we get some a 3-year lease? I'm just talking, right? So here in this case, like you probably will be paying 100K extra, maybe still be okay from my view because you're not paying very big, right? Like right now you're $500,000 you're doing, let's say 600K you're giving or 700K you're giving for next 3 years, okay? And that time you can really decide whether you need to continue here or there. So we get at least a couple of years for us to decide where we want to move or how we can utilize the current facilities in a better way. Because one of the points which Sylvia said also, we don't know where halls there will be a revenue going to come also. That could be another thing. Because let's say we put it in market for 1 year and see how it is going to go, right? So that could be. So we may have to explore some more, I think, stuff because, and another thing is the school the right place for making an office in there? That's also another thing we have to think on, right? Because school environment is meant for school. That's where your conversion rate is becoming very big also. So we have to really look into our other properties as well and see that. So if we can get a shorter lease here, what is the rate?
We haven't explored that. I do know that we had actually extended our termination notice. They did allow us to get in 2025 because originally when we gave notice, it was for April of 2024 when we thought we were moving sooner. So we already had asked for that extension of 1 year, which they allowed us to stay till April of 2025. We haven't asked them if they'd be willing to do an additional 1 year. The conversations right now have just been redacting our termination notice and continuing with our current lease all the way to 2033. So we haven't had that conversation with them at this.
Not asking to make any decision, but just to get some information, right? That would be good for us to make some decisions.
So I'm going to suggest that we go to public comment if we have any, and then come back to the board if we need to. Do we have public comment, Erin?
We do. We have 2.
Okay.
The first speaker is Leon Zhao. If you are present or if you're joining virtually, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Leon. You should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, my name is Leon, and I think it's better to move a school district to Melhouse now because if we don't do it, we move it 10 years later, and the cost can be very expensive, right? The cost of moving, the cost of remodel could be twice expensive, right? Because of the inflation, and also at that time we have to make same decision, right? We have to make the same. We will face the same problem, right? And maybe under harder financial pressure, right? Because the rent at the Mary site will increase substantially 10 years later. So maybe we have a lot of financial pressure at that time. So I think if we want to move, it's better to move it now. And also at Melhouse, we want to see the Cupertino school district to use the Melhouse property because we don't want to see business move in and move out at Melhouse frequently. So we want to see stability at the Melhouse. So so overall, I think it's good for the school district because it's financially it's more clear, right? It's more stable, right? It's more certain, and also it's good for the neighborhood because the neighborhood is also more certain. We know that the school district going to move in, and then we know we have a clear roadmap. We have a clear future. We know the mayor house is going to be the district office. So, and also in terms of funding, I think we can get funding from a donation. For example, if we launch a fundraising campaign at the older Cupertino School District, I think it's very easy for us to get like $3 million just from the parent donation. So in terms of funding, so I think this is the idea maybe you can think of. And so overall, that's my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Leon.
Our
Next
next,
speaker.
yes, our next speaker is Min Yin.
Hi, good evening. My name is Min. Nice to be here. This is my first time here and listening to the meeting. I'm very happy to hear all the report. Regarding the site of Mayor House Heights, I have to say I disagree of spending several $1 million on it. So originally back in 2021, we closed Mayor House. We were told to save $500K a year. It's just not right to spend 10 of that amount now to just move in the office. What kind of impression are you going to give to the community? The district is supposed to serve the community, benefit students, not to grab the campus, cram the student into their walls, drive them to private schools so that you guys have a beautiful office. That's not right. Okay, secondly, I want to say that this is actually the right time for we to explore other options because currently the office vacancy in Bay Area is 28%, if my number is correct. Maybe some part of it is like 40%. The district has the strong hands, so you can negotiate harder. I'm sure I see office space was empty for like 10 years, 15 years. The landlord is in a weaker position. So they fear you are going to move out, they lost that revenue, that rent. And also, usually when you sign a lease, and at the end of lease, if you don't move out, usually you have some default term, like you automatically extend for a month, for a year, whatever. We can take benefit of that. Meanwhile, you can look around because I'm sure there's deals everywhere. You can negotiate harder, get very good deal. Or maybe if you couldn't temporarily move to my house, then looking for other deals so that you can lock in, for example, 20, 30 years lease, a very, very good deal. So that's my suggestion, to try to think creatively. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was the final speaker.
Okay, great. Thank you. Before I go back to the board for more questions, what do you want from us?
Well, this isn't an action item tonight.
Right.
This really was just discussion to gather more information from you. I would recommend, because it isn't an action item, we don't have anything on the table, is that our next step would really be taking all the feedback again. And staff would have to come back at our August meeting with some additional information, maybe a recommendation, and put it as an action so that the board makes a determination. Again, that time just keeps getting kicked out. So we'll explore, what are the possibilities of extending this lease here for an additional year versus the 10-year. We'll explore.
And is there a possibility that
alternative
it's escape clause?
Yeah. It'll give us an opportunity. We have about 6 or 7 weeks that we can bring all of that back.
So given that, do we have any other comments or discussion from board members?
Last one. So did we explore any other, so going back to the school is the right place for the office, right? That question, if it comes out, do we have any offices around where we can get even cheaper lease than this also? If we can explore that, that'd be great. We'll do office space. Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, we're ready to move on to what I tried to move on to before. The adoption of resolution for the bond.
So this is a discussion action, and we do have Dale Scott as joining us virtually. It's been 2 board meetings since we talked about the general obligation bond. At his last presentation shared a couple different options. We'd heard from board kind of the preference of where you're leading to. Our agreement was we were going to bring back the sample resolution tonight. We know that, we're still within our time frame to sign that resolution and move forward. But Dale was going to talk, as you may have seen on the resolution and the presentation tonight, there was a slight shift and wanted to explain. It still was taking into the consideration of the extension and the highest dollar amount that we could get out of the bond. So I'll turn it over to Dale or to Chris. If Chris has anything else you want to?
No.
Hi, Dale.
Good evening. I'm hoping my internet connection lets you hear me. Is everything working?
Yep.
So if we can go to the last page of this presentation, I believe that's the that is the
Yeah.
There's a graphic there we go. Thank you. So we went back, we redid the numbers to be, to give that context. The numbers we've been looking at hadn't really been updated for a number of months. We took a look at new interest rates. You can see that they were actually they reduced from where we were. We looked at trying to reduce the tax rate a little bit, the overall tax rate. And we looked at if there was a way to increase the amount while still keeping it a tax rate extension by increasing the term, in this case, by 4 years. In doing that, you can see we still have a tax rate extension. There would be a tax rate that would come in approximately 1 year after the bonds were issued, 2 years after the bonds were issued. It would stay at that rate.
I'm sorry.
You got disconnected.
So I can maybe chime in a little until he's able to rejoin. Taking the information from the board last time, there was definitely an interest from going with the extension. There was also the conversation of the two different dollar amounts. There was originally the 306, I believe, and the higher one. And so what Dale was able to go back and do is to try to blend the two of them. Because I know there was interest, the getting as much money as we can with keeping the extension. And so that's what he was able to do here. This does represent extension, so it doesn't cost our community anymore, but it also gets us that higher amount to the 347. And it does that by extending the bond out 3 years.
Okay, so it is.
I'm back and I turned off my camera, so hopefully that helps. Thank you very much. Apologies.
Cece, it says 4 years.
I am back in and hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, a little shaky, but we can hear you.
Okay, I turned off the camera.
So I tried to explain, Dale, that we were taking in all the information as far as wanting to keep the extension, but the higher rate, and then it was extended for 3 years or for 5 years?
4 years. I heard your explanation and it was better than the one I gave. So, yes. So with that, if we can go back to the beginning of the presentation, the resolution itself, which runs approximately 6 pages, really doesn't get into the specifics until you get to the exhibits. When you get past the page 5, if you can go to that. The exhibits do a couple different things. Obviously, you have to, what you're asking in this resolution is to put the amount that we've discussed onto the ballot. You're asking the county to run that election. But then we get to the full text of the bond measure in Exhibit A. And this guides the district into how they can use the funds. Even though it's called the full text, if we go to page A3, you will now see something called the project list. And the bond project list, which has been worked on quite carefully by Mr. Jew, gives if we can drop down to the bullets, you can see there are numerous bullets on this page and the next page, which give an explanation of what those projects can be. To be clear, you are not guaranteeing that all of these projects are going to be constructed and implemented, but but unless the projects are on this list, then they cannot be funded. That's the critical piece. Going to Exhibit B. And
yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Look, you
Yes.
just went too far. There we go. And let me say that the Exhibit B, I'm sorry, Exhibit A is published in the sample ballot. Exhibit B is the actual ballot language. That's the 75 words, and this is exactly 75 words. Proper nouns, for those of you that want to get concerned about it and count it yourself, proper nouns count as one word. This language has been polished extensively to try to capture what the major projects are, while at the same time complying with state law for the many phrases and words that are required in this ballot measure. So this is the amount, I'm sorry, this is the actual language that would be found by a voter when they are going through their ballot. And it would be then, after the resolution is approved, this language would be forwarded to the county along with a copy of the resolution. And then finally, also given to the voters in the sample ballot, Exhibit C, is what is known as, and again, this is required by state law, is the tax rate statement. And they require 3 pieces of data to be given to the voters: the best average of the annual tax rate, which is $20.09, the best estimate of the highest tax rate, which is $27.50, and then the best estimate of the total debt service. Now, you might ask, well, wait a minute, I thought this was a tax rate extension. And it is, but there is obviously taxes within this measure that is going to supplement and replace the tax rates that are going off the rolls, and that's what this is capturing. So that's a whirlwind tour of the resolution. As I've stated a few times, I believe in the past, it requires a 2/3 majority of the board's seats, meaning you have to have at least 4 votes in order to place this on the ballot. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the resolution to the extent I can answer them.
Questions?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Scott. My question is about the ballot language itself on page B1. There's a listing of 6 cities that covers our district covers. I'm just wondering the order of these cities. I know maybe getting a little nitpicky. Just, Sunnyvale, for instance, has is it alphabetical? Is that why? Thank you. I missed that. Okay, it's alphabetical.
Sorry.
All right. No, I had noticed, for instance, Sunnyvale, for instance, it's alphabetical.
No, San Jose, Saratoga.
Okay, it is not alphabetical. It's all right. But I guess my question is really, why wouldn't we, for instance, list Sunnyvale next, given that it's we have lots of students in Sunnyvale, and Los Altos is a community where we only have 1 school. So just wondering, was it random? Was it alphabetical, even though it really isn't, or there's some other reason for that?
I think there was an attempt to be alphabetical, but not a very successful attempt. And if there is a particular that you would like, please let me know and we'll change it.
Oh, I really had a question. I wasn't advocating for it, but I'll noodle on it. Thank you. Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? I just want to make sure, I'm not sure I understood the last part of what you said, Dale. So does the tax rate remain the same, or you mentioned something about some additional taxes? Can you help me a little bit?
Sure. Can we go back to the slide at the end that had the table, the graphic? Yes. So you can see here that the total tax rate, the tax rate of the prior bonds and the to be passed bond remains the same. However, the new bond, the 24 bond, has its own tax rates, which are replacing the amounts that have now fallen off. The law doesn't really recognize that as asking for the tax rate statement. It wants you to tell the voters what are the tax rates of the bond that they are passing. So that's why there's this, it's sometimes a little confusing. You can say, well, wait a minute, I thought there weren't going to be any increases, and it says there are. There are increases. There are increases over what the tax rate would have been if you do nothing, because it falls. So you can see in the 4th year out, that tax rate rises by roughly $15 or so. That's the increase that is being described in that tax rate statement. And I'm sorry if I made it overly complicated.
So the tax rate that's in the statement is representing the blue. If you look at the blue, so if you look at the blue from 2028, that's about $20. But if you look at the blue in 2040, because the blue is representing the bond that we're going out for now, that blue in 2040 goes to the higher the 27. So that's what the language is representing, just the blue portion of the graph.
Okay, so my tax on my house is gonna go up over the course of the next, whatever it is, 30 years. Is that true?
We're talking about a tax rate, not the actual
I
tax.
want to know about what I pay.
Okay, so your assessed valuation, if you just remain in your house and do nothing, don't move, don't improve it, your assessed valuation will climb every year, the assessed value of that home. The tax rate that is applied to that assessed valuation will remain steady, is estimated to remain steady. That means as your assessed valuation goes up, your taxes will go up by 2% amount that is up, but the tax rate that's applied against that will not.
Okay,
Is
I
that
get it.
clear? It's a
Yes,
tough concept.
thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hold on.
I'm not sure if it's gonna be rhetorical, but I do see some of our prior bonds dropping off in the year 2028. And because of that, is that the reason why we're able to extend 3 years or extend by 4 years and be able to get a higher amount for the bond?
No, the reason you can extend it by 4 years and get a higher amount of the bonds is because of the changes in the interest rate assumptions. That 3-year lag was always built into the model. You'll still be able to receive the funding at that, but the payments won't begin until a year or two after the bonds have been issued. So it's more about overstructuring and being able to reduce the interest rates. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you're deferring the receipt of the funding.
Thank you,
Or the
and thank
payments.
you for be able to come up with an option that we'll be able to get more money with the same tax rate extension.
Any other questions, comments? Sylvia, Satish? Excuse me. So this is discussion action. Would you like? What's the board's pleasure? Does somebody want to make a motion? Do we want to act on it tonight?
I move to adopt resolution 23-24-38.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
Sorry.
I kind of responding to Jerry's question about the order of the cities. I kind of like what you were saying about like changing the order based on kind of where our biggest populations are. So I don't know, so would that be an amendment?
That would be an amendment. So if Jerry wanted to make an amendment to his motion and amend for the ballot language to list Cupertino, Sunnyvale, San Jose,
Can we discuss a bit first?
Yeah.
So I guess after it was pointed out to me, it's alphabetical, which I don't know how I missed, I guess.
It's not
You know, I know, but it was meant to be alphabetical.
Switching Saratoga.
Right,
Santa Clara.
I think that's probably easier to explain. I wouldn't want people to feel slighted because, gosh, you know, we're at the bottom because we're at the end. I do understand. I started where you're thinking, I think, which is we want to hit our biggest audience first, but then I do worry about the backlash of why am I in the back? And alphabetical is a very easy one to justify. So that's what I was thinking. So I wasn't pushing for it, but.
So
Do
I
you really
support
wanna go-
alphabetical, but I want it to be really alphabetical.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right,
It would have to switch Saratoga and Santa Clara for, we're going for alphabetical.
right. Okay, so I'm happy to accept that amendment. That it's this resolution with alphabetical cities, whoever was making that.
Okay, so you are amending
Yes.
you're amending, and you have to second the amendment.
I can second it. amend it.
Okay, now we need a roll call.
Trustee Leon,
I,
trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
But we didn't call for public comment before we voted. Should we have done that?
Is there any public comment?
Is there
I
any?
do not believe so.
There are not.
Oh, okay, good. All right, now we'll go to a very long consent calendar. We need a motion.
That,
We need a motion for the consent items.
oh, consent it. I'll make a motion for,
9.1 to 9.22.
that's right.
I'll
Is there,
second.
is there a second? Thank you, Sylvia. Roll call vote.
Trustee Leon,
I,
trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Action 10.1.
Under-
LCAP.
Under one, I'll make a motion. You have to first make a motion.
Are you moving? to
Yes.
Accept the LCAP? Okay, second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Roll call.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. 10.2, 24-25 district budget. Do we have any presentation or anything?
Need a motion on the table.
Oh,
first
a
as
motion,
fact.
I'm sorry.
I move to adopt the 24-25 district budget.
For a second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, is there anything that you want to say to us?
Just real quick, I'd like to call to the board's attention. We pull up the revised multi-year projections. It's a separate document. Yeah, so as I mentioned at our last meeting, that the multi-year projection was making some presumptions that we were carrying forward a 3% raise that's been built into the salaries and the certificate and classified salary raises. We also had that additional 1% that we have assigned in the ending fund balance. As you may recall, we had shown the $1.8 million, that equivalent to 1%, in the bottom assigned number for 24-25, yet we didn't show it in the ongoing years. Since that 1% set aside is essentially ongoing until those dollars are budgeted up in the salaries and supply and benefit line, we do need to carry forward on the same line in throughout the 5 years of the multi-year so that it does properly account for that being an ongoing expense. So I just want to call then, if you look at the bottom line section to this assigned categorical assign unassigned, unrestricted, unassigned, that 1.8 million there, it's carried forward all 5 years. That number will be reduced to zero once we move it up into the salary line. So it's just really more of a technical piece, just to make sure that we're accounting for the ongoing costs of that compensation. That's the only changes since last time.
Okay. Any questions? Ava?
Question. For the other financing, the 8,900 series, can you remind me, is that for the building fund?
Other financing.
Oh, it's
That-
under the first.
Yeah, that
Revenue.
represents actually the contribution from the building fund
Okay,
to support our ongoing maintenance.
that's under the assumption there hasn't been any new contracts and increases due to new contracts. Right,
No.
because I see that it's
This is still based upon what we're contributing this year for our ongoing maintenance.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Leon, trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow,
Aye.
trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. 10.3, we need a motion for the approval of the federal addendum.
I'll move.
Thank you, Sylvia. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sati. Do we need to know anything more about this?
No, no further.
Okay. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow,
Aye.
trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. 10.4, Prop 28 annual report. We need a motion.
Oh, I'll move 10.4 approval of the 2023 to 2024 Prop 28 annual report.
Okay, and thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry. Do we need any information on this?
No,
No.
no presentation.
Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow,
Aye.
trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. 10.5, foods and supplies contracts for nutrition services. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Satish.
I'll second.
Ava. And I assume nothing. Okay, roll call.
Can I,
Oh, you have a question?
no, can I make a comment?
Sure.
All right, I want to thank Nicole, and thank the federal funds to allow us to have additional money to spend on local produce, which means our students are getting fresher foods. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Okay, so that sort of ends our business part. Board activity. Does anybody want to report on board activity?
Graduations were happening this week.
We all went, I'm sure. It was hot at Kennedy.
It was hot at Lawson. McAuliffe was intimate. They did their annual where all of the graduates got to say a little bit of something. And that the whole school was watching. So that was really nice. And under the redwood trees kind of reminded me going back to UC Santa Cruz. So it was great.
Anybody else?
I went to the one for Hyde. I wanted to thank the two APs for causing a breeze to occur. So, no, but what they did, I hadn't seen this before. They actually alphabetized the certificates and then alphabetized the kids. And somehow all the certificates went to the right kids, even though not everybody showed up. That was pretty, so that I think Mr. Burrell told me it's primarily the two APs, Kathy and Jenny, who did that. And so that was great. And there's also Reese, so that was good. Yeah, and then Phyllis and I had a meeting with the three union presidents just prior to this meeting. I think we discussed sort of ways to kind of keep our discussions sort of just better ways to keeping that going, even through changes and people in the roles. We also talked about ways to improve some of the operational processes and maybe improve our sense of belonging. So,
That's it. That's good. You captured that very well. Okay. I went to Kennedy. It was great. They did a good job.
I went, CMS was at one afternoon or noon, and Stacy and we both of us, like, it was really sizzling. Actually, it's one of the biggest schools and the longest time, but they still managed to finish in 40 minutes because kids were literally running. So I think we should probably be looking into a different timing next year. 1 o'clock is not a great thing, or make sure that somebody else is going at 1 o'clock.
Sylvia, what did you do?
I went to Miller and it was wonderful.
Okay, moving along to public comment and closed session. Wait a minute, I'm missing something. Agenda items.
Agenda setting.
Can we look up into informational on Finch, see where we're at? We can move forward on that.
We are planning on bringing Finch back in August.
August, okay.
And I would like to explore some ways to help McAuliffe increase their enrollment or something. I just am a little concerned about the McAuliffe short wait list and declining enrollment.
And this whole discussion about today's things, about this lease and stuff like that, is that when will we get the updates? It's in August or?
It would be in August.
August, okay.
Yeah. Some information I can send in our Friday memo over the summer. We'll probably do those every 2 weeks versus every week,
Good, okay, thank you.
maybe every 3 weeks.
Anything else for agendas? Okay, any comments on closed session?
No, they're not.
Okay, then we shall adjourn to closed session.